The folded white envelope containing my medical test results felt heavier than lead in my hands, and as the bright morning sunlight streamed through the grand glass foyer of the mountain resort, my legs gave out from sheer emotional exhaustion. I expected the floor to catch me, or worse, to hear the mocking sharp laugh of Julian Vance, the ruthless work rival who had spent the last 5 years trying to dismantle my career. Instead, before my knees could hit the polished marble, strong arms wrapped securely around my shoulders, lifting me up with surprising tenderness while a frantic, genuine panic echoed in his voice as he whispered my name, revealing that behind his icy, impenetrable corporate persona was a man who cared deeply whether I survived the day. Before we journey deeper into this story of hidden pain, unexpected grace, and second chances, if you believe in kindness, forgiveness, hope, and the power of human connection, please take a moment to like this video, leave a warm comment, share this with someone who needs comfort today, and subscribe to our channel to join our growing community of compassionate hearts. For half a decade, Julian Vance and I had existed in a state of perpetual, high-stakes corporate warfare at the architecture firm where we both served as senior project leads. Every pitch meeting was an arena, every client presentation a duel, and every promotion opportunity a battlefield where we tore down each other's ideas with surgical precision. To the rest of the company, we were water and oil, two unstoppable forces constantly clashing in the glass hallways of our Seattle headquarters. I had built a fortress around my heart, convincing myself that Julian was nothing more than an arrogant, power-hungry climber who viewed me as an obstacle to be eliminated. I had spent years analyzing his posture, his sharp suits, and his dismissive smirks, convincing myself that he possessed not a single drop of empathy. When our firm announced a mandatory weekend leadership summit at a remote luxury resort in the Cascades, I had braced myself for 3 days of exhausting gamesmanship, determined to outperform him under the watchful eye of the executive board. The afternoon sun was blazing high in a cloudless sky when we finally arrived at the lodge, the crisp mountain air doing little to soothe the tension humming between us. However, the meticulously planned retreat descended into chaos at the front desk when a major system error revealed that the resort had been severely overbooked by a regional convention. As executives argued with stressed concierges under the bright skylights of the main hall, the resort manager sheepishly announced that only one executive suite remained for the two of us, and no other hotel within 50 miles had an open room. I stood in the sun-drenched lobby, my hands clenching into tight fists, waiting for Julian to throw a condescending tantrum or demand that I take a shuttle back to the city. Instead, he simply ran a hand through his dark hair, let out a long, weary breath, and accepted the keycard from the clerk with a quiet nod that lacked any of his usual venom. When we unlocked the door to the suite, the bright afternoon light flooded the space through massive floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking a pine forest, illuminating a plush, expansive suite that contained a small sitting area, an ornate mahogany desk, and a single, massive king-sized bed sitting squarely in the center of the room. I froze on the threshold, my breath hitching in my throat as the absurdity of the situation washed over me, my defensive instincts immediately kicking into overdrive as I prepared to draft a boundary contract or offer to sleep on the sofa cushions. Julian placed his heavy leather duffel bag near the wardrobe, walked over to the glass doors to stare out at the sunlit valley, and let out a soft, heavy sigh that seemed to drain years of confidence from his posture. Turning around to face me, his blue eyes tired but strikingly direct in the clear daylight, he gestured toward the bed with a calm gesture and sighed softly, telling me that it was just one bed and asking me not to overthink it because we were two exhausted professionals with a massive project pitch due to the executives by 4 o'clock that afternoon. His unexpected composure caught me off guard, stripping away the argument I had spent the elevator ride constructing in my head. As the warm noon sun began to shift across the hardwood floor, we silently established an unspoken truce, dividing the room into functional workspaces. Julian claimed the small writing desk near the window, pulling out his tablet and stacks of paper, while I settled onto the edge of the large bed with my laptop propped on my knees. For the first hour, the room was filled only with the rapid clatter of keys, the rustle of blueprints, and the gentle breeze filtering through the partially open balcony door. Yet, despite the quiet focus, I could feel a strange shift in the atmosphere. The oppressive toxicity that usually defined our interactions in the corporate office was entirely absent, replaced by a heavy, contemplative stillness that seemed to strip away our carefully constructed professional masks. As the daylight grew stronger and warmer, casting golden reflections off the glass coffee table, I began to notice subtle details about my rival that 5 years of animosity had rendered invisible to me. I noticed how Julian repeatedly rubbed the bridge of his nose with a look of profound exhaustion that went far deeper than a missed night of sleep, and how his hands trembled slightly whenever he picked up his pen. When he briefly stepped out onto the sunlit balcony to answer a call, a sudden gust of wind blew several papers off his desk, scattering them across the rug near my feet. As I leaned down to gather them, intent on returning them immediately, my eyes unintentionally caught the top document, and the breath caught violently in my chest. They were not corporate financial models or aggressive competitive strategies, they were detailed architectural renderings and legal permits for an affordable pediatric rehabilitation clinic, complete with financial ledgers showing that Julian had been quietly funneling nearly his entire executive salary into building the center for underprivileged children. A loose folder slipped from the stack, revealing a framed photograph of a young girl with a bright, luminous smile, alongside a worn newspaper clipping from 8 years prior detailing the tragic loss of a young girl due to a lack of specialized medical equipment in a rural hospital. My chest tightened with an overwhelming wave of guilt and realization as I stared at the papers in the bright afternoon sun, understanding in an instant that the ruthless, workaholic man I had hated for years wasn't driven by greed or corporate vanity, but by a desperate, heartbreaking mission to keep a promise to his deceased younger sister so that no other family would suffer the same preventable tragedy. Before I could place the documents back on the desk, the balcony door slid open, and Julian stepped back into the sun-drenched room, stopping dead in his tracks when he saw me holding the medical blueprints and the photograph. I watched his jaw clench, waiting for the explosive anger, the sharp defense mechanism, or the icy sarcasm that usually guarded his personal life, but as the bright sunshine caught the unshed tears brimming in his eyes, his shoulders slumped, and the formidable corporate titan simply broke down. Sitting heavily in the chair under the bright daylight, he buried his face in his hands, admitting in a raw, cracked whisper that he was running out of time and capital, and that winning the senior directorship position at our firm was his absolute last chance to secure the corporate funding necessary to open the clinic's doors before the land permit expired. Sitting beside him in the warm glow of the afternoon, the artificial walls between us crumbled into dust, and for the first time, I allowed him to see the truth behind my own desperate ambition. I opened up about my childhood spent bouncing through cold, indifferent foster homes, explaining how my obsessive need for perfection and professional dominance was never about beating him, but about a terrifying, deep-seated fear of becoming invisible and helpless once again. In the quiet warmth of that room, with the daytime sun pouring over us, two rivals who had spent half a decade trying to destroy each other realized that we were both simply wounded survivors, using professional success as a shield to protect our deepest scars. Julian looked at me not with the cold calculation of an enemy, but with a profound, quiet understanding that washed away years of bitterness in an instant. He reached out, gently picking up the medical envelope I had dropped in the lobby earlier, and held it with deep respect, assuring me that whatever news was inside that paper, I was no longer fighting my battles alone. Sitting side by side at the large table under the brilliant sun, we made a silent, sacred pact to stop fighting each other and start fighting for one another. For the next 2 hours, instead of preparing separate, competing presentations to tear each other down, we combined our design concepts into a single, breathtaking master project that fused my creative, human-centered architectural aesthetic with his brilliant structural precision and community-focused vision. When 4 o'clock arrived and we stood before the board of directors in the sunlit conference hall, the executives were visibly shocked when Julian stepped to the podium and immediately yielded half his speaking time to me, publicly praising my vision and highlighting strengths in my work that I had never known he noticed. In turn, when I presented, I made sure the board fully understood the transformative social impact of Julian's structural design, presenting our work not as a rivalry, but as an indivisible partnership. The board was stunned into silence, mesmerized by the genuine harmony and unmatched quality of our joint proposal, which ultimately led them to make an unprecedented decision. Rather than choosing one of us, they created a co-directorship position, officially approving the company funding and backing for the pediatric clinic initiative. Walking out of the conference hall back into the brilliant afternoon light, Looking out over the majestic mountain peaks bathed in sunshine, I looked at Julian and saw a man transformed, no longer a cold corporate rival, but a trusted ally, a kindred spirit, and a true friend who had helped me find hope in my darkest hour. The realization washed over me that sometimes, life places us in uncomfortable, unexpected situations and forces us into close quarters not to punish us, but to break down the walls we build around our hearts, proving that behind our greatest conflicts often lie our greatest potential for healing, unity, and love. Before we reveal the final chapter of this journey, please leave a meaningful comment below sharing your thoughts on this story. Have you ever misjudged someone only to find out they were carrying a burden you knew nothing about? If this story touched your heart, please like this video, leave a meaningful comment, share it with someone who needs hope today, and subscribe to our channel so you never miss another emotional journey. Our family and community grow stronger every day because of wonderful hearts like yours. As the golden afternoon sun began to dip toward the horizon, painting the sky in radiant hues of amber and gold, Julian and I stood side by side on the resort terrace, breathing in the fresh mountain air with a profound sense of peace. He looked at me with a genuine, warm smile, one I had never seen in all our years of competing, and expressed his deepest gratitude, promising that this new chapter would be built on mutual trust and shared purpose. I smiled back, feeling the heavy weight of fear and isolation vanish from my chest, knowing that the overbooked room and the single bed were not a mistake at all, but a beautiful, life-changing twist of fate that taught us both how to forgive, how to trust, and how to turn our deepest struggles into a lasting legacy of kindness.